All right, what's going on, guys? Time for another breakdown. This is a recent one that I really like a lot. Again, trying to hit those authentic vintage vibes. Go ahead and play through it and then talk about kind of my thought process behind these techniques and break it down track by track. Like I said, authentic vintage vibes. Really was trying to go for West Side Gun, Rock Marciano, soul type vibes. It ended up coming out a little bit darker than what I initially wanted it to, but darker is always fine in hip hop. It kind of opens the door for more people to use it if it gets darker. So I feel like I can hear trap drums on it and hear a lot of other people on it. I feel like I could even hear Drake on it just by itself. So I'm really trying to either one, make like full songs with vocalists and everything, or two, make the idea sound like it's chopped from a full song. Those are the things that are keeping me interested right now. You'll see, you may have heard it when you were listening, that this is kind of like a 5-bar loop. We have these 5 bars before it chops and loops again. The total loop is regular 16 bar with a turnaround on the last 2, but the first 8 bars is like a 5-bar loop and then a 3-bar loop, right? Or a 5-bar section and a 3-bar section. And, you know, on the second 4 bars, we just start on the second bar of the first section, if that makes sense. It kind of makes more sense to play it and look at it. So let's do that. You can hear that this 5th bar right here, that is not this first bar. So it's not just 4 bars that are looped. It's, you know, the first 4 bars and then 1 bar of the next section of the song, you know, quote unquote section of the song. And then it bounces back to the second bar of that first section. A little bit confusing, but I really wanted to do that to make it sound like it was chopped from a song. And then, you know, the last 2 bars are chopped as well. So you can see I'm working in all audio files here because I was really trying to achieve that chop feel. If you're chopping from a record, you're not going to get those reverb tails. You're not going to get those reverb tails when you chop it, right? It's going to go back to where you chopped it from. So that's why I'm working in all audio files here so that I can chop off all of the tails and not get any of that reverb bleeding over. I just wanted to get that out of the way first so we don't have to come back to it every time. You're going to see that every track here is chopped kind of after that 5th bar and then looped starting at that 2nd bar of that first section. A little complicated, but I think it makes sense when you listen to it. I guess we can start with the bass because we usually start with the bass. The bass line on this one is extremely simple. Right? It just repeats like that all the way until the last 2 bars. Very, very simple bass line. We are working in B flat minor here. So this is another 4-1 progression. I think we've done 3 out of the last 4 samples have been 4-1 in the minor key. Like I said before, it works for a ton of stuff. And then one little thing to note about the bass quickly at this part where, because even if you were to bounce the MIDI of the bass out to audio and then chop it, it's not really going to sound much different. So what I actually did here was on this last one, I dragged it out, dragged it down, and then I dragged it like that a little bit. I made it a little bit longer so that the tail isn't so natural. It feels like it's a little bit louder. It's like the tail of a different bass note or something, right? So you can kind of hear that when it plays. I'll play it. just hear that little bit of a jitter there. And again, it's not something that is going to make or break the sample. It's not something that you'll even be able to hear, like if somebody made a song over it, but I'm just trying to stay diligent and make it as realistic as possible while trying to achieve this chop feel. Next, we have the piano. So here's the piano MIDI. So as you can see, again, I only did 6 bars of MIDI because I knew I was going to bounce it out to audio and then loop it back at this second bar. But this 5th bar has a different top melody, right, than this first bar, just to give it some variation and to really sell that idea that it's a different part of the song being chopped. And then another thing is this little sweep up here. That's also not the same sweep up that leads into this second bar. I still wanted to put it there to make it sound like it's sweeping up into a different section when it's chopped. You can really hear it right here. You hear that little bit of that sweep up before it chops back to that second bar, right? So little details like that really help sell it. And then some simple little embellishments on top just to move the piano piece along. So that final piano sounds like this. Pretty simple on the piano. Bass and piano were both pretty simple because there's a lot going on with these vocals. The vocal part is actually a lot more complex than this. Again, like I said before, I bounced all of these vocals out so that I could then chop them. So this is actually the full vocal section. There are a lot of things going on in the vocals, and I think when you put all of these things together, it really makes for a cool, realistic sounding vocal. So the first thing we have are just oohs, 2 different group choir oohs going on just for the main chords that bring us through. Then we have kind of a second layer of backup vocals or background vocals, and that is actually me singing. So on top of the chords, I laid this very simple melody. Right? Really, really simple. That's all that it does, and then repeats from, the second bar again. That was recorded a lot lower and slower with Varispeed. You can see here up top, I was at 127 initially and bumped it up to 151 for the final. Just a couple layers of me singing that simple melody, and then on top of both of those are these vocal phrases that I pulled. They're either from Mahogany Voices Volume 1, which is out, or Mahogany Voices Volume 2, which is not out yet. So I don't remember exactly which pack I pulled them from, but they're from one of those packs. And I just, go through these packs and try to figure out which phrases fit well with what's already here. So this is what I ended up doing. You can hear, again, that 5th bar really sells that chop. So those are the different vocal phrases from Mahogany Voices that I put on top of this. And the last little section of vocals is what, I kind of considered all of those to be background vocals. Even though these are kind of doing some runs and phrases and stuff, I still kind of considered them like background vocals. So, and then this lead up here. And then if you have phrases to put on top, but more on top, right? So all of these different things add up to make a really realistic performance in the vocals. So all together affected, the vocals sound like this. And then again, because we're in audio here, we bounce the reverb to the audio. It just cuts off at the end, and there's no reverb tail over. Or there's no reverb bleed over or whatever. So that's all the melodics. The only thing we have left is this really simple drum track. And again, same thing, bounced it to audio so that I could chop it. And this is another one of those things that really helps sell that, is that I used multiple different cymbals that were panned differently, and you can hear when it chops, that cymbal tail chops back to the other cymbal. Right? Little things like that really help sell the idea, chop idea. But that's it for the drums. It's just very simple drum pattern. That is the sample. So again, some cool techniques in here that hopefully you can think about incorporating into your ideas. And hope you guys like this one. And thank you so much, as always, for all of the support.